Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this roundtable organized by the Industry Department of San Sebastian Festival. I'm Isabel Vázquez. I'm delighted to be here with you this afternoon. And before I start, I would like to remind you that this activity is organized with the support Europa Creativa Desk Media Euskadi. Media supports the production of series and online content through the co-development and TV calls for proposals and online content that will be published in the coming months. If you would like information on these calls for proposals and other media funding opportunities, the media office managers will be happy to meet you. In addition to the offices that are present in all media countries, these days you will be able to see several of the media representatives at the media stand in the Cursal. With all this information, the title of today's Historias para no dormir, Spanish horror story, and it's not an homage to Chicho Ibáñez Serrador. We're not going to talk about horror stories because what keeps spectators awake is not horror, but true crime. I want to see another episode, yes, a true crime episode, and it's a binge-watching system. So this is the serious special of the festival. We have a luxury cast. Susana Herreras, executive producer of Rapa, the third season in Movistar Plus, La Mesías, Hierro, El Otro Lado, so producing a lot of series. Elias León Siminiani, director of 800 Meters, the Alcácer case, the Asunta case, Operación Nenúfar, and with the release of El Circo de los Muchachos very, very soon in November on Prime Video. Elias, welcome. And Laura Sarmiento, longtime script writer, creator of Intimidad and El Cuerpo en Llamas. Welcome. The conversation is open. You will be able to have a dialogue and ask questions. Everybody plays here. So we will participate as we wish. The series in which our guests have participated are very different from each other. There's fiction, documentary, police dramas, passionate murders, terrorist attacks, religious fanatics. So to speak, not all of them are true. Not all of them are true, but they are all crime. So I'll try to organize this conversation. I'd like to start with a question. What is true crime for you? How would you define true crime? Why are you looking at me? Because you're in the middle, Laura. Well, is this an academic conversation? No. No. Here, every person will contribute with his or her own idea. What is true crime for you? Do you like documentaries, series? For me, is the fiction of real crime. Yes, real crimes. Yes, based on true stories. I want people to call it as they want. It's true crime because it's a story, fiction or non-fiction about a crime. And it's the time when you take a real case, a real crime, and you turn it to fiction. When you make a documentary, the true crime, the true is real, and it's because a documentary, it's not fiction. True crime for me is a label, a selling label. It's fashionable. True crime is anything that you sell to a platform. If you're going to do Georgina, you can sell it as a true crime series. Well, I don't think Georgina is going to become a true crime. No, it's a metaphor. For me, true crime is linked with new journalism. When Truman Capote wrote In Cold Blood, there's a real crime, and I'm going to use the tools and the elements of journalism, not just the traditional journalism, but fiction is used to tell the story, which is horrible, in order to reach the greater number of people. This has been in latency for many years, and little by little, new series appeared, and it emerged suddenly because there was a context of platforms and because we had El Caso Escalera, the James making of a murder. And so this is started, and everybody wants a true crime series. And we don't know what a true crime is, but everyone wants it. I think now this is about marketing and a label. It's a brand. I think you answered 7 questions at the same time. Okay, let's elaborate on this. This week, when I had some free time, I wanted to ask myself, what is true crime? Because I knew about your question. People mentioning cold blood, but I found a fantastic article, and they said true crime is a story, a tale. In Spain, in the 17th year, there was a concession to an organization for the blind. They had the exclusive concession for rulings and sentences. They had the right to turn rulings into a poem and in verses and rhyming. In England, it was the Bible of crime. And it was exaggerated, and it became tales, typical and popular tales. There was the tale that was told based on a real case. So there was the moral part of a tale. Be ready to the danger, and then I will exaggerate the story. I will tell you this story, but while exaggerating a lot. And then they had the moral, the tale, the true, and the crime, the exaggeration, and the label for marketing and sales. It comes from our history. We're hooked because Margareta Landi has published a biography. She was the journalist during Franco, and she worked until the 80s about horror cases and about crimes. The Blood Drop by Pardo Bazán was published in 1911. It was one of the milestones. It's the beginning of a special fiction literature / journalism. Pardo Bazán wanted to follow these crimes, these cases, and she had letters with Pérez Galdós. He was a fan. The Crime of Fuencarral Street, the novels following. And when you say that it's recent, in fact, it's not recent. Didn't start with In Cold Blood, and it never disappeared in history. I think it never disappeared. It just changed. It turned into a different space, a different shape, different places where this was offered. Magazines, newspapers, morning containers, morning shows have been fed with this because morning shows need hours and hours of forecast and mission and programs. And now we have the forensic expert, the psychologist, and we will have a debate about a case. And during the discussion, people speak about the shade and the character of men and women and perpetrators and horrible cases. It didn't have the focus or the prestige as they have now. Now they have more prestige, more focus, and they are appearing and emerging like mushrooms. When you say true crime, everything is in there. It has been given some air of quality. It's sold as a case, as a true crime, but it's just the pack. It's just the it's just the container. So a criminal case has been turned in solid stories, very high quality stories. And the difference is that now it's been given more prestige, more quality, it has more dignity. This genre it has more dignity than in the past. Do you agree? I really believe that you cannot label true crime as something that could be deprecative. In Cold Blood, well, we can speak about The Adversary by Emmanuel Carrère. I suppose that there's something that's in your questions. This is the moral part. We should do it, we shouldn't do it. For me, the Second World War is the huge true crime story of our history, and it has been turned into thousands of fictions. Maybe the soldier had no name, but you're telling the tragedy of millions of people during the war. Every time there is a possibility to turn this real case into a real reflection, an interesting story, well, it depends on the gaze. It's reflection and fiction. It's for the entertainment industry. It's a reflection, not just telling the anecdote or the story or the horror story or the crime. I'm not fascinated by that because I don't watch true crime. But it depends on the relationship between the human being and fiction. It's about unconscious knowledge. You are not watching that to learn, but at the same time you're attracted by it. True crime is getting close to reality, to horror stories. You're not going to be risking anything. You're learning things about the extreme of human nature. It has always existed. People were attracted to that. There was romantic stories and historical stories. We want to feel it without the risk. Yeah, in Greek literature, it's 90% of true crime and 10% of epic. I don't know if you wanted to add something. You spoke about the preliminary fiction that started all this. Sarah Conning podcast. It's in English. It's called Serial 2014, and it was a milestone in the taste for true crime. It's a podcast that was published in 2014. It's an American journalist. It was a cold case of the 90s. A guy who was in prison because of his a girlfriend murder. And then Asesinatos en el Edificio, it's a parody of true crime. It was a comedy about true crime. There's a character, Tina Fey, and it's a parody of the star of true crime podcasts. As Elias said about the scale of true crime histories, do you think that there's a real star in true crime, La Escalera, the scale, or something different? The Yinks. It's not that old. 2013. Yeah, I think La Escalera is the staircase in 2013. And the Yinks, everybody spoke about that. and documentaries in episodes. There was some space for that, some room for documentaries at last. I do not really watch true crime stories, so this came to me by my friends. Let's speak about women who love to watch a true crime. A lot of women like that. My relation with true crime and what I've watched and what was interesting for me was Mindhunter, the fiction Mindhunter. Mindhunter was important for me. I heard about many series too. You spoke about women. I'm interested by your opinion. Do you think that these new true crime stories have included men? Traditionally, the Lifetime movie were meant for women. Estrenos TV in Spanish. The woman ill-treated by the husband, or she poisons her husband because she couldn't put up with more. We had fictions with great actors, but it was a movie divided in chapters. Do you think, like Dear John, do you think now men have been included in this female genre? Everybody is now watching true crime, not just women. Elias, you mentioned that fiction stories have been included in non-fiction. To give it more dignity to this genre, very good casts, very good directors. Now there's more quality in true crime than in the past. Maybe what happened, as when you buy a deodorant, you have a normal deodorant and then the super white, aggressive deodorant with the shape of a bolide for men, for different masculinities, like Dahmer, Mindhunter. It's a Fincher, and it's something more directed to men. The gym bro can get there. But maybe this is the choice of what crimes, what stories, what horror cases. It's true. We always do this joke. I wouldn't put Mindhunter in true crime. I associate it with a mixed public, more men, but true crime, classic true crime as a label, I link it to more women spectators. But lately, I have the impression that more men are watching that. I was talking about thriller. Thriller encompasses everything. And it was more female type of spectators watching thrillers or reading thrillers. Maybe has changed in the last few years.
There are several things which are essential here. First of all, platforms. Platforms have changed everything. There are many reasons. Platforms make it possible to have longer or shorter things, different lengths, different budgets that didn't exist for documentaries. So that gives you the possibility to research. As soon as you can research, you start obtaining tales and narratives which are different compared to those we had before. On the other hand, serial, I think that it is like before and after a turning point. Sarah Koenig, basically what she does is to introduce research into the content. This didn't exist before. That is new. And it goes beyond that because she says that she is an amateur journalist in judicial cases. So this opens a new point of view because she can research into that even if she is not an expert and she wonders. So that is going to be generating identification from viewers, and it also opens up a whole way so as to see the research activity there on the screen versus the off voice where everything was being told, but we didn't get to know the process, the procedure. And on the other hand, and this dates back to 2 years ago, and the best example is Asunta's case, platforms want fiction and documentary, both things, that duality. Well, this opens up a whole new perspective. And here, in the case of Spain, maybe in a few years' time, we will see what happens. But this is something totally new. When Ramon Campos and myself, when we started making true crimes, documentary true crimes in Bamboo, that was like an anathema, dealing in fiction with a Spanish narrative in the fiction, and that is not the case any longer. And now suddenly we have Asunta, which is the series that has been most seen in Spain, and maybe also in the world, the Spanish production, the most seen one. And there is a tectonic process there, and it is all linked to platforms. I don't know, for example, you, Laura, when you made Intimidad, Intimacy, so what is this based on? Or let's research into this. The ground of reality that you could end up having, I think that it is going to be much, much larger and bigger compared to 10 years ago, because this has required some kind of, yes, versus Rapa or Hierro. Maybe they come from the invention out of the imagination. No, you don't agree, but it is super interesting what you're saying, because in Rapa and Hierro, maybe they occupy a different position compared to Querer, which could be similar compared to the Messiah, La Mesías, or Intimidad. But Rapa and Hierro, they have two people behind, Coira and Araujo, Fran and Pepe. Fran and Pepe are able to do something which is quite rare in fiction, because they research, they read, they get documented before as well as during the writing process, but they live reality to surprise them all the time. So the truth goes before, and they are fascinated. They are so happy while researching that everything evolves. Maybe they had ideas, but they evolve and they adapt the plot, the characters to whatever they are researching into. And that is very movie star style. And that is something defining the type of fiction we are making, because we want to be able to do things which do not imitate foreign crime stories, you know, American or French or English lawyers. No, we want to have our own lawyers, our own people. And that is only possible if you link things, if your link with reality has not been imposed on you. Somebody is not coming and saying, okay, so this is the crypt, and now research. Oh, now the policeman, how boring, telling me about what I have to change. So I understand your viewpoint, because I think that there is a link between the more classical fiction in Rapa and Hierro, but there is also a link with the British crime fiction. And now I was thinking about Tomás in Rapa, that character, how he approaches things. He wants to be a researcher and to research into the cases. So the third season is just going to come out. It's going to come out. And something beautiful is to see that link between both of them. She is a policeman, a civil guard, and he is an amateur because he's a professor or a teacher. He would have wanted to be something else. And he is a, you know, in the case of this journalist, what is her name? Yes, very similar to that journalist. Yes, the idea according to which we all want to be researchers, amateur researchers. We go back to the parody, killings, assassinations. Yes, but we're not only talking about parody. ¿Quién mató al gato? He killed the cat. Today, with social media, I can also be a researcher, just like a professional researcher. And that has changed. Well, a crime has been written. Se ha escrito un crimen, a crime. Only asesinatos. I have only seen the first one. There are, it is a parody, but they are very tender. You can believe them. They are believable. So, and I enjoy that because there is a lot of truth in that motivation. Yes, the pulsion of the amateur research is also there, like Miss Marple. That is also a classical, but that comes from the same place, parody. Yes, that is unavoidable. Because at the beginning we have a joke. Characters, you already love them and you want to see them. But how they come together, it is completely absurd because they are just following a podcast, a criminal podcast, and they meet in a cafe just like that. It is, like that. I mean, and you want to believe it and to like it because you love them. Elias, I don't know if you want to add something. What is your approach with Intimidad? Olvido Hormigos, up to what point are you taking her into account? No, we don't take her into account, Olvido Hormigos. Yes, that was very funny because people said it's an adaptation of that case. People would say that, and I said, no, not at all, not at all. Yes, this is a politician, a lady who is being blackmailed or an extortion. I don't know how to define it, yes, because there was a sexual element there. But no, nothing to do with Olvido Hormigos. The truth is that I am against that side. I like to get documented, but not too much. I like to research into things, but not too much. If not, I can end up being crazy. Yes, it is important, but what I really like is that at a certain point, I already have the characters. And once I have them, I say, that's it. It is not that I reject studying further. I keep on reading, but I already have what I wanted. I need to have those characters. And once I have them, I am happy. And then I can get detached from the facts. Because the reason why I wrote El Cuerpo en Llamas, Body in Flames, is because, somebody like me, I have never read Agatha Christie. That's how I am. I don't care. That's not my cup of tea. But, I was wondering something. And what were you wondering? Why? Why? That was the question. Why? But we are talking about highly realistic characters at that point. It is true that the crime was very silly. It was not important to know how, and we all knew who were the murderers, but why? Why normal people did what they did. And also because, characters, those people were very voracious, and I wanted to know why and how these people end up doing that. That is what I wanted to understand. I wanted to have that. And I am not obsessed on other things. Then we needed to make the crime a bit more sophisticated so as to have something interesting, because in the real case everything was crystal clear from minute one. There was no mystery, zero mystery. So in order to have a bit of mystery, we needed to make it more sophisticated. But when adapting something, I need that. El Cuerpo en Llamas, which is based on the crime, El Crimen de la Guardia Urbana, just like the crime of Fuencarral Street. That is past of our past. Is that something your own initiative or a commission? I have the doubt. Please tell us. Arcadia, the producer, went to Netflix with the project, and then Netflix thought of me. I was finishing with Intimidad, and they thought of me. And the first thing I thought was, no, I refuse. There were other extortions there as well, and it was a bit too much, too intense, too toxic. Once you accept the series, you are going to be spending 2 years of your life around all that. So maybe you are not in the mood or not. You may be in the mood or not. Then I talked to Arcadia people, with Yvonne and Andrea, the producers, and it is true that I was afraid of the approach, because that could end up being a study of characters, or it could end up being something grotesque. But it is true that little by little, I started seeing in those characters some types of personalities of people. Yes, because it is so very recognizable. People say, oh, look at that gang. No, there are certain elements in those people who are very human people. And well, that was why I said yes. We have also spoken about it before, but I would like to say that it is fiction, and I think it is fantastic. The issue, the topic of sexting, it is also very well portrayed and balanced. And now we will be talking also about the characters and the trial, but so as not to contradict that reflection based upon fiction, that doesn't, you can be a killer, sure, but we all deserve a trial after a trial. This is like a circus with many different layers, and I think that there is a perfect balance in everything you have portrayed. Yes, the harassment, the main character is suffering through this sexting technique. Before, we were talking about Intimidad, and we said that it is not based on Olvido Hormigos case, but there are also certain similarities with La Mesía at a certain point. People thought that was some kind of biography of a specific religious group or order who sing, who are on the internet, but I think that things are a bit more complex than that. Yes, it's true, those are just headlines published. The real case was that one, and that was on the media, it is true, but that was coming from a research process, and Los Javis have spoken about it very well, because they were curious about many different cases which shared certain similarities. And when researching into many different real cases, because they were fascinated by the parallel situation, parents retaining their children. Why were they doing that in each case? And which were the tools children had to go beyond that? And I remember the Javis saying that one of the tools was art, the arts. Those children ended up using the arts to come out of all of that, but that was a very long and difficult research. And with Laura Querer, the process has been similar. This is not a true crime, this is not a real true crime, because there is not a crime as such, but and it is not even true, because there is not one single case there as an inspiration, but there has been a lot of research for many months, because the approach is a hyper-realistic one from the emotional as well as from the legal point of view. So there is a research going to court, talking to victims, to psychologists, so as to build a case which is not real, but which is true, because everything you are talking about has happened 1,000 times before. And this is very important when you are making thrillers, no, fiction, when you are telling stories. Well, it is a thriller, even if with dramatic elements. Well, I don't know. I think that it is important for all of us. I think that in our team, The truth of the characters is essential. We need characters to go beyond all that, to go maybe beyond the script and the twists in the script. And with the platforms, as he was saying before, now we have much more freedom in terms of time and minutes, but we do not have something any longer. Before, we could develop characters for 23 different episodes or 7 seasons. I miss that, but today we can have shorter stories and give them the time they deserve, and that is very interesting. As a viewer, I love what you are doing every week. You were talking about parents, children, relationships. According to Wikipedia, true crimes, many of these cases are linked to serial killers, and many of them are also, many situations referring to minors and different behaviors. We will be talking about Alcácer and Asunta. Maybe it is more clear in the case of Asunta. Yes, what happens at home. Ryan Murphy's the Los Menendez is one of those milestones from the 1990s. I was thinking about The Act, the fiction about this girl whose mother was controlling absolutely everything, saying that she was ill, sick, and who kept her at home, locked at home. So there have been many different examples, and this is a sub-genre of true crime. So Elias, please, fiction gives more freedom to tell these stories. What do you think? But have you ever wanted, or have you ever wanted to put a bit more distance with the facts in your documentaries? We three, I think that the three of us share that we all work between fiction and non-fiction. And today, there is like a contemporary canon of ultra-realism. And it is paradoxical, it is weird, because on the one hand, in this period, we are all almost living a virtual reality. We are doomed to that. But if we talk about contents, there is a need to inspire ourselves and drink, so as to say, from reality. And as Laura was saying, at a certain point, I need characters to start talking to me just as they have always done in classical cinema or in literature. I want them to talk to me without having any intellectual thing underpinning all that. So I miss that, yes, but I am a bit weird, and my approach maybe is a bit different, and I want to study and to compare things, but there is something specific in fiction which is linked to the composition of the character, the mise en scène, how to put the characters in the space and introducing the camera there and creating magic. But there is also a ceiling there in non-fiction. When suddenly Asbestas, 7 million euros, and everybody, we are fascinated. What's that? Well, that is the magic of movies. Yes, Brian De Palma's magic, the magic of fiction when cinema is good. I miss that, it is true. Or, well, but that is something I have never been able to do myself. But I think that that is essential, and that what happens with realism in a society where mainly young people are more and more living in a place which is virtual, which is not real. And how can we manage the temptation of feeling a creator when we are talking about non-fiction? Oh, no. I have never, ever felt like that, as if I was... No. When I started working, just like Laura, when Ramon Campos called me 8 years ago, he said, let's make a Junta. And I said, no, forget about me. I know nothing about all those cases. I have never enjoyed that. And he said, I will be in charge of the journalism and you will be in charge of cinema. But I understand that there are many proposals linked to the fact of getting the core, the documentary core, to fiction, to something fictitious. There are beautiful examples, it is true, a few of them, such as The Jinx or Roll Morris with the Zero Blue Line, but I have the feeling as if it is an attempt, but it is not successful. Well, if we're talking about fiction, let's do real fiction, because if not, what's the point? It's also true that I have been using certain elements but voiding them. For example, objects, spaces are very important for me. And maybe for other people, they don't have the same importance. So let's just go to fiction and that's it. Well, you have your camera and you can force or you can alter or change the reality. Yes, because we're talking about fiction and entertainment. Fanger has things have to change every 10 minutes. Well, the tools are there. And then I have this ethic compass when telling tales, and I have to do all the best so as to engage the viewers without pushing too much, pushing. No. If you want to push, that is for people working at the Tokyo metro station. Let's talk now about Elena Rapes, well, the distance that we all have to keep with our material. Laura, in certain cases, we have to be cold-blooded, right, when analyzing a case such as El Cuerpo en Llamas, right? Because the story is really incredible. Of course, we do not want things to become grotesque, to become a circus. So, what about the distance you need to establish with your characters? Distance with your characters. How do you work with characters and with crime? I needed to put a lot of distance with the real people. Yes, that was another... No, you had no relationship with the real people. It is not that that didn't interest me, but I decided not to contact them, no. But on the other hand, I wanted to be very close to the characters. And sometimes when I speak about it, and I gave a lesson for script writers with El Cuerpo en Llamas, and this was very controversial, because I said, if you are going to be writing a character, you need to understand the character. You are not justifying the character, but you need to understand it, explore it. And then the character will be doing things you would never do, of course, and then you can end up judging those events. But you cannot write from a moral superiority point of view. And they couldn't understand, and I'm talking about, a script writing master, students. Yes, I have also been in that situation when giving lessons. Many of my students say that they are unable to write, to create characters if they don't share the same ideology. But you are script writers. Oh, come on. And I think that it is worrying for them, because then that is going to be limiting you as a creator. You cannot have that ethical limitation. Yes, your stories are going to be much poorer, as well as your point of view, which will also be much, much poorer. You need to go down on the ground, and it is true that you cannot keep a distance all the time, saying, oh, this gang, what are they doing? Because if not, that will be generating worse dialogues, worse action. It's going to be like that, sure. It will be like that. That happens when you are writing, but also when you decide what stories are going to be made or not. Yes, I agree with you. If you are only going to be accepting, for example, you are giving your assent, you receive potential contents to be produced. If you had only to accept things according to your priorities and your preferences, then I am sure that your employers would be having a problem.
Because the audience would be reduced and directed. And I'm really concerned with this moral restriction. We won't have any more sopranos, Jackie nurses, or the family. Yes, then you create a fiction to reassert your position. That's very old. It's old-fashioned. Do you relate it with the fact that they're young, or because of it's the younger generation? No, I relate it to mobile phones. These people have the ability to speak or to talk with others. In the documentary classes, the first thing I do is, during 3 months, I don't want to see your phones. Go to speak with people, because when I was doing my promotion with a production, and I was linked with influencers, and they're very young, and it's very tectonic. The very young generation relates better with a camera than with a person. What do I have to do? Where's my camera? And they know how to do it. I speak to the camera. That's my culture. If we're going to do something related to reality, people need to be real and to have contact with others. They need to speak face to face with others. And for me, this is linked to virtual reality, the mobile, the social networks, etc. Yeah, it's about niches. Many people belong to a niche, an ideological niche, aesthetic niche, and the immediate judgment. It's about the mobile phone. I'm going to write a character, and what do my friends are going to think? Am I exercising my demons? What are they going to think? So my creative pulsion is completely cancelled. Or people will think that what I write, it's because I do believe in that, because it's me. It's about me. This new generation, when they are more in the 20s, they have a high pressure because the judgment is immediate. But in the past, you could be writing for 3 months and you had no immediate reaction from your friends, because people are launching these writing, these ideas, these stories, and they have immediate feedback. It's very problematic because, well, youngsters are going to make the future. Last year, I decided that I'm not going to speak badly about the youngsters. They're going to do what they want. They will do everything after ourselves. The fact that they don't read, that's a problem too. If you read crime and punishment, then you realize that there's a whole world behind it. I say crime and punishment, but I would choose any type of novel. The dictatorship of the ephemeris. It's the hyper attention to the proper image, to your own image. In the past, I said that these people were a bit crazy, but maybe it's a new canon. It's a new stereotype. Several years ago, I made one self-person movie, and the criticism was terrible. You're narcissistic. You shouldn't tell us about your life. Now people are obsessed with their lives, and I'm not interested by other people's lives. There's a real change. How are we going to tackle this? It's because we are aging. Let's talk about distance and perspective. I would like to ask you if it's easier to use immediate material or older material. For instance, telling the story of Alcácer or 800 meters or Asunta. These are very different timelines. Very interesting indeed. It's not easier. It's not more difficult. If you tell the old story or the recent story, what is recent gives more attention. It's going to be attracting more attention. Alcácer was the case, even though it's old. And talking about the past, you have the archive. You have very good images. An archive have a lot of material, and the problem is that it's you fight against the fragility of human memory because people lie, and memory lies, and people rewrite the stories. Now we are rewriting the Spanish transition period, transition to democracy. And my mom said, no, but there was an agreement and this was changed and it's not the same memory. She didn't say the same 30 years ago. So they rewrite history. Philosophically speaking, it's good to revisit our memories and our history. You are fragile as a creator. You're fragile in front of facts and events, but it's marvelous. In the Alcácer case, in the Nenúfar operation was the same. This is rewritten about something that we follow for many years. The Alcácer case is not immediate. It was not just about a crime of Nieves Herrero show. This case was made of many, many chapters in Mississippi Show, the theories of conspiracy, many, many years following a true crime story that was horrible and which traumatized my generation. We have the Asunta case and Nos vemos en la otra vida, two fantastic cases. Just 1 year later, suddenly this is open up more spaces to tell more stories, to tell more things about the same events. This is the fragility of the public opinion. Why 3 years ago nobody could make a fiction on the 9/11 or the 3/11 in Spain? Nobody could think about a fiction called Asunta 3 years ago. It's a spectacular fiction, but nobody dared doing that in the past. So it's very interesting, this new interest. Susana, talking about the judgment with distance, Querer will be released, the premiere will be here in the festival in the official section, not in competition. The trailer has been launched. It's a woman. She accuses her husband to have raped her. Between fiction and reality, there's the series of cases which compose Querer. Different cases are mixed up. These are very controversial cases, and we can rearrange them so that people can understand them. Subjects are so complex. If it was a non-fiction, we would be taking sides. We would be taking sides, and the fiction itself gives us more freedom. We have more tools. We have some stories that we cannot even think, they cannot be imagined, they cannot be understood. But now with fiction, these cases can be better understood. We are less militant. It's not about saying, I agree with this person, even though she's guilty. So in fact, I'm not taking sides. I'm exploring complexities. And fiction gives you more tools than non-fiction. Well, it depends on each case. You have Sambre is fantastic. The Sambre case is a fiction true crime, French. It's called Sambre. It was a serial killer. He started to rape women for 30 years, and he was arrested last year. Sambre. Yes. Why doing or not doing a project? There are many reasons. In Sambre, the French series, it's important to tell the story of the society about its 30 years. And it connects with the new case in France with the rape of this lady. In Querer, we have a conversation with the producers. I don't have many examples of projects that happened like this one. The producers are telling us stories and giving us ideas. There was another one that was a good idea, but during the lunch they said, we are very interested in doing something about consent. It's very abstract. The law, of course, yes, the law of consent, the story of the law, what people said about the law, the legal aspects. But they didn't have a project. And I said, it's very interesting, indeed. I don't know what Domingo's going to say. So we created a team, and we made progress along the lines. We never started about a case. We wanted to tell something, tell a concept. And we will see how it will evolve and with whom. We want to start from scratch because there was nothing before.
And we found, she was found, and that was the starting point. So I think that each story is its own world. You never know where inspiration is going to be coming from. How are you going to be how are you going to be able to reply why? Why did this happen? In our society, that is very important. Why did this man, why did he do this before and today? Laura has 4 different points of view, but you only have the information you see. There are no flashbacks, no information from the past. Everything starts with that claim filed. So they are never going to be telling you what you have to think, neither what she is thinking. She is just showing you different characters and you follow them, and that's why it is hyper-realistic. I give you those 4 different points of view, and that's it. And in that sense, it is not really a true crime. It is really a good true crime, because you end up judging. In true crime, you get hooked because the viewer is judging. What would I do in that situation? In Intimidad, Laura, linking this with Querer and with what Susana was saying, did you feel as if you were also writing and explaining the reality of a person living this situation, writing against the prejudices of viewers? Because, we are talking about somebody who has a public life. She should lead with the example, right? So you write against those prejudices or not? Or do you just analyze the character? Don't you feel that pressure? In the case of Intimidad, there was a position, clearly. El Cuerpo en Llamas is a very different case, which is liberating because you do not need to have, a moral direction. We always have a moral direction. But it's true that there was a purpose, but also because back then I was very cross, I was very upset, I was very mad. And something that made me really cross was, making the victim guilty, and that is not over. And then later on, I enjoy very much studying psychology, and so there is a psychological ground there as well. It is as if we are afraid something like that is going to happen to us. For example, you are on the road, you have an accident, and you say, but why? Why was she there at night on that road? And it is as if you are protecting yourselves, as if you were saying, life is fair. If it has happened to you, it's because you have deserved it. So we have to be conscious of that. With social media and with Twitter, it is true that there are so many comments and you read such things, crazy things. It is incredible having people, I mean, even if they don't use their real name, being able, how they are able to say what they say. They insult people. I find that incredible. Having somebody saying, this is my next movie, and somebody writing asshole or bastard. I can't understand how there are people with such a motivation. Right now, I was thinking, about people going to see how somebody is being executed. Who decides to go and see a woman who is going to be burnt? Imagine. I mean, I cannot understand that. I mean, those people would go and see a woman being burnt. There was not a TV. They couldn't watch television, but they could have read a book instead of going to see such a thing. I would like to know if maybe you have questions, because if not, then we're going to run out of time. So you can raise your hands. Yes, we have a mic. Thank you. I am John Hopewell from Variety. I am going to be writing an article which will be published tomorrow, and I have to finish that in the next 1 hour and a half. And since I am going to be writing it in English for the foreigners, maybe I think that an important subject could be, up to what point can we speak about the difference between the Spanish crime series and, on the other hand, the French, German, or Scandinavian crime series. 2 weeks ago, we wrote an article about the French touch. The French touch. I mean, apparently there is a French touch, something unique there. I don't know if that is true or not. But in that French touch, there is a procedural and a mix of family drama altogether, and more, they also look for light crime. They want lighter crimes, using the southern France light. I don't know. Have you got any idea? Do you think that maybe there is a specific direction for the true crime? It's true, we have not spoken about the northern countries, and as John is saying, there is a specificity there, some kind of uniqueness, and it has spread, and I don't know, it has influenced the new narratives. Fiction, true crime, documentaries, yes, they have all been influenced by that. What do you think? I do not see many differences between, if we compare countries. I think that's also that platforms have globalized everything as well. What do you think? I could say 2 things. First of all, I think that more and more we want to do autochthonous things that reply to something local, following something local. The more the better, the more local the better. And also, different legal systems are there. Spain has one of the worst legal systems. And I think that everything which is linked to trying to do something American style, no, that is going to fail, because there are so many privations, image rights, what can be shown or not. It's true, our law is different, and it makes things very difficult. I think that there is a lot to do. Just as such as things as American vandals, as Okay, so give me some room. Let me use this image and not having to pixel everything. Well, I would say that, but if either in the cinema or in series, things that have been very successful is because they have a local approach. Yes, the global. It has to be global and local at the same time. But local is even much more important than global. But maybe he was speaking from the formal point of view. As you say, local is successful. That is what we want. And once again, going back to Margarita Landin, who said, we do not kill in the same way in the north or in the south a Basque person is not going to be killing a woman in the same way as somebody in the south. No. Taking the knife, no. In Andalusia, things are going to be done differently, maybe as a result of the hot weather. Hierro y Rapa. Why is it successful, Hierro y Rapa? Because you have Hierro and Galicia, or Fariña. Why is it successful? Why does it work? Because there are many actors working with their Galician accent, and they just don't need to speak like that. I am the sheriff. I agree. It's what we were saying about when we were speaking about the truth. When I was little, there were trials, and you could see that they were not like here. And people say, oh, but trials here are very boring. And I have seen trials in Spain, and they can also be highly interesting. Muerte en León, yes, that was a trial. It was magnificent, as if Lorca had been there. Yeah, that is a myth, because suddenly you take a Spanish trial and you say, this can be spectacular. Yes, Margarita Sherwood, she was really beautiful. And Lida Bilbao as well. But something I wanted to say is that if true crimes are being as successful as that, is because we are, this is not for you, conservative times, a very conservative period when proposing projects. That is important as well, even if it is not the only reason. There are many remakes, many adaptations. Yes, Elias was speaking about that combo. At the end of the day, true crime is an adaptation. You are adapting something that we have read about on the papers. So that gives you a bit of safety when building something. So beyond what you were saying, everything has to be perfectly well documented, so that's not for you, because they ask for everything to be duly documented and not to have any problems. Going back to Fariña, Laureano Viña, it is true that he filed a complaint, yes, when they portrayed how he was having sex with his wife. The problem for him was not that his family was going to know that he was the leader of this cartel. No, for him the problem was that he was being portrayed having sex with his wife, imagine. And there was a book which was, which gave the guarantee, because nobody's going to be buying fiction if there is no documentation there published. You need to have all that. Last year I spoke about it. I had to justify if Julio Iglesias had as many lovers as that, or Miguel Dominguín, if his brother was a communist or not. All that has been published, but you had to bring all those documents. Yes, I know what you are talking about. The legal context is the same, and I have heard so many times, no, the book is not enough. If there is a book which is published, no, not any longer. Not even that seems to be enough. It's true that it depends on the lawyer. Lawyers can be good, better, or worse, but it is linked with the right to, yes, freedom of expression against the honor. So if there is no defamation, no problem. And I have lost my trail of my thoughts, sorry. And after those problems, when adapting real cases as a result of those situations, then, there is also a social fear, oh, but it's a real case, but you are using the name of Rosa Peral. And American fiction, they don't care. And then it is true that we are not ashamed at all when showing and exposing so many things. We show, we expose, and there are, programs all year round showing the miseries. But it is completely absurd, this approach in fiction. And it's true that in books, sometimes there are not as many limits or limitations as that. If you want to preserve a secret, publish a book. Well, but it won't have the same repercussion. It happens to me that one of the series I have enjoyed most was Nos Veremos. We will see each other around. But I think that there is a huge formal freedom. Disney has let the cabezudos do an incredible work. Yes, there is a huge variety. When we are talking about why we want to have true crime or not, because you are going to be discovering something about human beings, about our reason of being, or why we end up doing what we do, and that is crazy. I was thinking about cabezudos, true crime, and stories which are not real, but based upon real facts, that you participated at a piece which has been constructed based upon a reality that we could all recognize, which was a fiction based upon Tirbe's book, then adapted by Cabezudo, and Laura was in that team.
A couple of more questions.
Hola, buenas.
Hello. I would like to go back to the ethics. This summer, people spoke about the mother of Gabriel Cruz. She organized protests in the street because she didn't want to have a true crime story about the death of her son. Were you affected in your personal life by these stories? Carles Tamayo, doing Monstruo, said that he went back to his village and some of the older women said, this village doesn't deserve this serious. Any problems you had in your personal life when something has been released, people, family members have criticized you? Are you worried about that, about the reaction of others? In this time of my life, I'm okay. But I had to analyze a project many years ago. It was about a real case. And I knew many people were going to suffer. But it was interesting. And that project was carried out. We were not involved for legal reasons. And I know the people very close to the environment said, and we suffered a lot. It was awful for them. I didn't feel bad. And I wasn't close to the feelings of those people. I wasn't close to that universe. I'm being very abstract. But I was connected with the suffering of the family. They didn't want to be portrayed. But they understood the why of the creators, why they wanted to tell this story. That was legitimate. I would have preferred the authors to have made a series in a more abstract way. We need to protect people. Maybe there's another event. We didn't want the story to be recognizable or the characters being recognized. But something you can't control happened, and people were identified because there was something in fiction which was close to the person in the real life, and that was very complex to solve because that was an undesirable implication. I think there is no simple response to that. In case of El Cuerpo en Llamas, I tried to protect the environment, the family. We changed all the names of the characters. The daughters were not two but one in the series. We had to get documented to see what were the names of the real people and to change those names. In the creation of our fiction, it had implications. If it was an absolute fiction, I would have been crueler, more cruel with the characters. But it wasn't a real fiction. I couldn't add to their suffering, maybe with different names, but they were going to identify with the characters. And I contained myself from the creative point of view, because I thought that I shouldn't go down that avenue. But would I fiction a real story for these reasons? I think that's a limitation. It goes against the freedom of creation. These are two different rights, opposed rights. We would have lost very good stories, and they helped us reflect on human nature, on humankind. It's very complicated. But if somebody opposes to have this story told, of course we have to respect their ideas. And this mother, there was a producer who tried to interview the murderer, and she didn't agree with that. So it was a bit tricky. I can understand that mother. Her request was legitimate. We need to have the permission of the victims. And even with their permission, you have to be very careful why you tell this story. Is this just for entertainment? We have to be careful with those people and with their lives. We need to contribute with something to the investigation, or because you ask many questions about the humankind. But if you just want to tell things because of the business entertainment, that doesn't give anything to anybody, just more suffering. It's a dilemma. To what extent I want to do that, and in which way I'm going to cause less suffering. You know, sometimes that the character would be much better if you could portray it in a different way. But my students say to me, I don't want that this increases the suffering of a person. So we need to get to a balance. Let's talk about pure creation. Fictions would be much better if we were very bad people. There's a book, a fantastic book called Difficult Men. It's about creation of cable series at the turn of the century, after The Sopranos, The Wire, etc. And most of the creators of this series were hateable. David Mills opened his door and he was pissing outside his apartment, and that was the best thing he did in the morning. He was a horrible person. That gives you a sense of power. That was Matthew Weiner. He's been cancelled, and Don Draper was afraid of him. The problem is that we have very good fictions made out of very bad people. It's a dilemma. It's case by case. It's very different. I'm not justifying it. The complaint by the mom of El Pescadito, this little boy, she's legitimate. Every time we do something, we ask about the victims, and we ask for permission. And victims can be victims from one side and from the other side, and they don't think the same. I have the impression that case after case, you develop an ethic compass. I don't want to go down that alley. If you read Crime and Punishment, or if you read Talese or Milder or Truman Capote, you will realize that they're trying to know about human nature. They don't want to harm people. No, of course he wasn't a good person. He died. He died. So what? But that's exactly what I was saying. These bitches and these horrible men don't have any problem in attacking the family of the murderers. Capote wasn't a good man. He was a very good author. His ethics were a bit twisted. He was twisted. In Cold Blood was a very good starting point. I didn't understand. You think that authors, yeah, if it was fiction, you would have gone further? I didn't know how these people were. Many characters that are well known. We know about the milestones and we know about the events, but we're talking about fiction. But documentaries on crimes have always been very, very cruel, very callous. Books are written about crimes. So, and motivations are being speculated about the people involved. There were very, very phallocratic judgments against Rosa Peral and chauvinistic opinions, but then you need to create a fiction. Rosa is with her parents, and there was no judgment. During the creation, in the case of the characters of the parents, to create a character as Rosa Peral, from the pure sense of fiction, I would have shown where she came from. That's something that you agree with the people. This is a true crime. You cannot tell something that is harming a person. You're not going to embellish the drama. You're not going to... Well, yeah, that's the decision I took because you're a good person. I understand it. Thank you. Any more questions? Hello? Coming back to your last reflections, because I had a question about that. You spoke about the problem of some of your students when developing characters and when writing scripts. They have moral and ethics barriers. And what is the impact in the development of their dialogues because they don't want to be on the other side? And for you, is there a better way of approaching characters? Is that an exercise of empathy? It's being a chameleon. You need to define specific common points, agreement points that justify, in a way, your ability to develop your characters, to contribute with more reality to their discourse? Or is it more an exercise of style, a technical exercise, an imitation? How do you recommend to have this approach in the production work? Well, in my case, I don't believe in evil, in pure evil. I don't believe in pure goodness, except if there is a psychiatric or an disorder or an illness. I feel in self-deception. I look for self-deception. I'm not feeling empathy, but it's very difficult to find the word. I understand the mechanism. Somebody who decides to kill, it's not because the person is evil or because they want to harm somebody else. Sometimes they have legitimacy. It's self-deception for them. So people feel legitimate to kill another person. It's an option, and this needs to allow the person to sleep at night. How do they build that case? It's not being empathetic. Depends on the moment. Rosa Peral is not just a crime. Some other moments in her life are different. I understand the suffering, but It's a why. The problem is the why. Just forget about caressing the cat. It's more human than that. It's more trivial. It's about self-deception, the self-justification. En El Cuerpo en Llamas, I understand her for many reasons. Would never kill him, but of course I understand her. And she's not she's not a good woman. But I can understand murderers to a certain extent. We need to understand their mechanism. In Muerte en León, I understood the horrible feeling that led them to the murder. I understand the perpetrators. That's where the character changes, and it's not empathy. I think these people are evil. They don't use the good arguments, but with the new generations, there is a barrier. Young people say, no, we're not going to tell that. These are very bad people. We don't want to tell these stories. Why not? I say. Why don't you want to tell their stories? Because they're bad. You need to understand the human mind. You have to be curious. You want to investigate, to know the context, their childhood, how these people got to that point, why they became murderers. You need to understand. You want to do research into that. Most of people do not commit crimes, but you sometimes understand what they did. I would say that above all, never judge. Above all, never judge. And you have a prejudgment on a character, change your story. Just forget about it. We're talking about the ethical barriers. For me, it's not an ethical barrier. For youngsters, I think it's a dictatorship of goodness. The dictatorship of goodness. It's very superficial, and it's completely uninteresting. And in line with what you said, Elias, there's a sentence that many people told me in class. It's about the safe space. It doesn't mean that you need to abuse or to be unkind, no. I was talking about the difficult men. But I believe that the creation space is not a safe space. Creative space is a space where you get exposed, especially when there is a joint creation, especially in script writing. Sometimes you write alone, but you need to feed with other people's experience, and then you need to absorb the other people's experience and then create. The idea of safe space is a trap, because you cannot just be outside the experiences, outside other people's lives. It's not being wearing a condom. Some people want to deal with specific matters wearing a condom on their brains. And what are we going to do with the antagonistic view? What are we going to do with the somber people, with shade and with darkness? If we only talk about very good, nice things, we need to do something with darkness. We never spoke about good things and nice things. At the last question, please. The last one, please. Microphone. The projection. Yes. I think that I want to defend young people. I work with young actors. They understand that they shouldn't judge. They need to understand. But I have a question for Elias. Bayona, in the Snow Society, it's a real case. But he was affected by many situations. And you were free in the set, or everything was already prepared? And were you free to create within the fiction? No, I've never done fiction. They can answer this question for me. My way of being crossed by the story is to do the best investigation. I try to be the best investigator to understand what happened and the context. That's my way of understand it from non-fiction. In fiction, that's a totally different process. It depends on the actors because the script writer is not an actor. We're just imagining, but we are not in front of the cameras. A director is somebody who tries to give life to the story.
Hola.
Hola. Hello. I would like to ask about ethics. Where are the limits? It's about the limits of humor. There are, don't know if there are limits. I was really impacted by the documentary about Alcácer case. I saw the past and the present of the Mississippi Show. It was very going beyond many ethical and moral limits. The documentary shows that situation, going off limits. In the past, that was happening in the shows, on TV shows, and the treatment that was done of the case at the time, and the families were persecuted. Now it would be impossible. What it affects me is when I see true crime stories, even though I'm hooked to that, I feel bad. My conscience is not very at peace at the end of the stories. Being attracted to those cases. Well, in fact, I understand that this makes money. People earn money out of that. I see the money around. I feel bad. It's about entertainment, and not just about money. Of course, I understand that. That's a conversation that I have in my head. People are getting rich through the suffering of many people. That's why we speak about barriers and limits. That's all, just thinking out loud. I don't know if you want to say something about that. Of course, people are earning money out of these true crime stories because it's our job. It's about content, entertainment, and creators are stimulated because it relates to human psychology, because they are very transcending events. And of course, many companies are going to earn money out of it because it's not done for free. It's commercial. I don't know if you have something to say. When I went to the hairdressers the other day, the hairdressers were talking about the children of Terelu and Mar Flores, this couple, and they were criticizing them. And they said, these two guys live out of this. They knew about their lives. It's always this double morality. I didn't want to speak about that because I was being hairdressed. You don't realize the incoherence of it all, and you speak about what people think about these TV shows. In the Mississippi Show, one of the contemporary changes was that the mother of Gabriel's mother, she doesn't want to be exposed. She doesn't want to go to TV shows. Because you remember the parents of Alcácer's girls, they went to TV shows all the time. In TikTok and in Instagram, we have reels, tagged reels, real threads about the suffering. People go there and they talk about their depression, their self-mutilation. There is an exhibition of suffering on first person. If you have a trauma, if you've had a crime, people don't tell about that in a voluntary way. It's not about exploitation. People go there and expose their own lives, and they talk about their suffering. It's very contemporary. People love that. In the case of Alcácer, I discovered that because I was very small, and I discovered that in the documentary. My great discovery in this character is that it's very, very dark, very Pepe Navarro, or the father. How do I survive out of this? My daughter was murdered, and this guy went to all the sets, TV sets. He was all over the place, and he was contributing to something very somber, but it was very human because he needed to explain what happened to him. I don't know if he was getting money out of that. I understand his behavior. Out of my experience, the 3 true crime series I made, I understood Fernando Garcia, I understood Rosario Porto, and then I understood the others too. When somebody crosses a threshold of suffering, this person enters a space where our psyche, our morale, our ethics don't work anymore. So it's another space. They cross the line. It's very difficult from my side to understand that. Of course, they take pills too. It's difficult to understand and to look at that. So we want to be exhaustive, to expose it, to show it. That's all. We don't judge. Because I don't know where these people are. If my child was murdered, I don't know where I would be. It's about self-deception, creating a new reality in order to survive. I remember when we spoke after more than 1 year when Porto was in prison, we were clandestines because we were talking to her on the phone. And I said, okay, she's the best actress of Spain, or maybe she really believes what she says. So she's in another space. She went somewhere else as a perpetrator. In Alcácer, there are 3 fathers. There's his mom. She refused to speak, and she was in conflict with Fernando Garcia. Different positions. One of the best potential true crimes of this case is Diana Kerr, because there's the father. There is an HBO documentary about Dolores Vázquez, and she didn't want to talk about Rocío, and she said, "No, I don't want to be in that program with you. I don't judge. I don't know if it's good or bad not to accept going to TV shows. Of course, they are suffering. Why do they have to go to TV sets? And some other people need to go there and to speak. We need to understand their reasons and say, okay, I think that the reasons you have may be in line with my will to tell your story." It's good to put that in the end, to see the reaction of the people you know. Okay. Yes, we have to finish, please. Thank you very much, everybody, for your presence. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much to all our guests. And now let's go to the cinema.